Mr. Tata, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some information for delegates that the participant list for this meeting is available online on the website for the meeting. It can be accessed there. It's been compiled on the basis of the letters of credential and on the basis of the online registrations that have been received and which has also been matched with the stakeholders directory. Despite that, if there are any other corrections to be made, please have a look at the participant list online, and please inform us at the Secretariat, and we will carry out the changes before finalizing the participant list. So we will be doing that over the remainder of this week. So please take your time to look at the link and suggest any corrections to the participant list that you may deem fit. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, as discussed with you, before we take up, you formally take up the next agenda item, we'd also like to remind delegates, both online and physically present here, that the evaluation form for this meeting is available, and you can scan the QR code, which is presently reflected on your screens. And may I request the QR code to be reflected, please, again? Please take 5 minutes to kind of access the evaluation form through using the QR code on your screen. This really helps us to service you better and judge how well we have done in the different areas of work. So I would like to request you to use that QR code and fill out the evaluation questionnaire. That we would be very grateful if you could, then we could compile the results. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we will now turn to our final agenda item, namely item 5, adoption of the report of the committee at its 6th session. I have the pleasure to present to you the draft report of the 6th session of the Committee on Social Development contained in document SCAP/CSD/2020/L.2. In line with the streamlined procedures of the committee for this session, the report of the Committee on Social Development contains only 2 sections. 1, matters calling for action by the Commission, and number 2, organizational aspects. A short summary of the proceedings will be prepared after the meeting and circulated for agreement. This will be annexed to the report as a chair's summary of proceedings. I would like to inform delegates that English language editing of the report will be undertaken by the Secretariat following the adoption of the report. In view of this, distinguished delegates are requested to focus on the substance of the report and to leave the editorial work of correcting any grammatical or typographical errors to the Secretariat. I also request those delegates wishing to make minor changes to the text to read them out at dictation speed. With respect to any major changes, please provide the written text to the Secretariat in advance so that they may enter it on screen for consideration by all delegations. Yes, you can now see the draft report on the screen. May I propose that we go through the text of the draft report with the aim of adopting it. And I wish to seek your attention to review this draft report paragraph by paragraph. So on section 1, matters brought to the attention of the decision, matters brought to the attention of the commission. We have 2 decisions. So let's, the following decisions adopted by the Committee on Social Development are brought to the attention of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, ESCAP. So please run through decision 1. Are there any delegation wishing to take the floor and make any comments, suggestions? Yes. I recognize the distinguished delegation of Iran. You have the floor. Oh, they are connecting. They are connecting virtually. Please release the mic and you can speak.
Hello.
Good afternoon, the distinguished delegate from Iran. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you giving me the floor, dear Ambassador Samantha. Actually, I don't know what is the procedures of the decision, the draft report of 6th Commission. Paragraph or by paragraph, we will have a floor, or at the end of we can have actually our intervention.
Distinguished delegate from Iran, did I understand you correct that you wish to make a general comment, possibly at the end of the adoption?
Not exactly. I asked the secretariat and you impersonally, after each paragraph we should adopt, or after the end of the draft report we should adopt endorse the report.
Right. As I said at the beginning, we have 2 decisions. So my intention is to put before the distinguished delegates each decision, and we will adopt each decision and move forward para by para.
Thank you very much. This way is better. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your question and for helping us moving forward. May I once again see whether there are any further delegates wishing to take the floor at this point on decision 1? It seems not the case, so I would take it that the decision 1 is agreed. We will now move to decision 2. You would note that there has been 2 suggestions already incorporated. I recognize the distinguished delegate from Iran again. You have the floor. Iran, are you there with us?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me for the second one the floor. I really appreciate you and the secretariat to add our intervention and the things we Iran delegation mentioned, but we wanna add in the footnote. about the intervention B, that in table 1 and 3 thematic area C is to be changed to sexual and reproductive health services and reproductive rights. Kindly ask the Secretariat to add in accordance with ICPT Program of Action and Beijing Platform in the footnote page 7 and 11.
We seek your indulgence for a few minutes to follow through what you were just referring to. I recognize the distinguished delegation of Indonesia also wanting to take the floor. May I know, is it on the suggestion that is already made by the delegation of Iran? In any case, you have the floor. Indonesia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Indonesia is of the view that measuring indicators is a long time exercise, and if the indicators are not defined properly and the measurement is not done correctly, consequently, it will not work. In line with this, Indonesia would like to seek further clarification from UNESCAP on the indicator of 5.1.1 of the thematic area A, gender equality and women empowerment, that mention whether or not legal framework are in place to promote, enforce, and monitor equality and non-discrimination on the basis of sex. The clarification is needed with focus on how this performance indicator will be reviewed and calculated, particularly on the availability of baseline data and measuring instruments. This consideration should be applied to all indicators mentioned in the framework, with emphasis to the indicators related to income, minimum proficiency, to mathematics in education, the provision of open space for public use, reproductive healthcare, and recruitment costs borne by employee in the thematic area of international migration. Furthermore, Madam Chair, Indonesia suggests the terminology used for the thematic area C into sexual and reproductive healthcare and services. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, the distinguished delegation of Indonesia. May I now invite the Secretariat to make a clarification?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the intervention made by the distinguished delegate of Iran, if I understood her intervention correctly, she would like a footnote made both in page, in the first page of, under page 5 and page 7, yes, on page 7, and then again on page 11, where the sub-thematic area of sexual and reproductive health, service and reproductive rights are to be added or amended, to have a footnote. I think firstly the footnotes all appear at the end, so if we add a footnote, it will come definitely at the list of footnotes at the end of 18. So we will add the footnote, and we will also align it as explained by during the intervention that this is in line with the SDGs. So that is what we are going to do. In line with the, as far as the intervention made by the distinguished delegate of Indonesia is concerned, as we went through the discussion yesterday, and as was explained, this is a voluntary framework, and it is to be implemented to the extent possible by countries depending on their national circumstance. And that is the point, that it is a voluntary framework to be applied as per national circumstance, and to essentially be used as a tool for assessing progress for the next Asia-Pacific Population Conference. So very clearly, countries will use this tool depending on their capacity to do so, and also applying their own national circumstances. So I would therefore say that the introduction of the term voluntary for voluntary monitoring of progress towards implementation of the program of action would kind of address the concern of Indonesia, since we are putting it right in the beginning. Yes, putting in the heading. So so therefore, because we have not had the time to really, that's why it's kept in such a flexible manner, because we note that it's very difficult to have a one-size-fits-all. So we would seek the indulgence of the delegates on those. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Secretariat, for
Iran.
this clarification.
Iran is asking for the
Iran, please go ahead. Iran, can you hear us? Please release your microphone and the floor is yours. Iran, I presume you were following the explanation or the clarification given by the Secretariat with regard to the suggestion for footnotes. As the practice, the footnotes will appear as explained by the Secretariat at the end of the report, along with the other footnotes. And with regard to the suggestion on the title of the indicator framework, it will now read as Asia Pacific Indicator Framework for Voluntary Monitoring of Progress towards the implementation of the Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development, and of the commitments contained in the Asian and Pacific Ministerial Declaration on Population and Development. Then on the substantive or the thematic segment, it will be changed sexual and reproductive health, services, and reproductive rights. Iran, please take the floor.
Ask the Secretariat to add after sexual and reproductive health and health services and reproductive rights at the number and mentioned on the footnote that with accordance ICPD program of action and Belgian platform. Just it.
Yes. Distinguished delegation from Iran, may I inform
Yes, thank
that...
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
May I inform that this language, what the Secretariat has just clarified, has been taken to be in line with the agreed international language from SDGs, and that was
Yes,
the
yes.
understanding. I see that was the understanding arrived, that we use to the best extent possible agreed language. So I seek your indulgence and cooperation. Yeah, yeah. We could use the footnote to reflect that the language is in line with the SDGs.
Yes, it is in line with the SDGs and international agreed language on it because some countries, such as my countries, can accept reproductive rights if we bring in accordance with ICPD program of action and Belgian platform, as you mentioned. Thank you very much.
Do I hear any other views? Are there any further delegates wanting to express their opinion at this point on the suggestion? I invite the Secretariat to take the floor and make few more additional information available to the delegations.
Ma'am, thank you to the distinguished delegate of Iran. I think she is providing the justification. I think this whole indicator framework is to implement. In fact, it's in accordance with the ICPD program of action. And I think that's very clear. So I think what I would suggest is we will say with appropriate footnotes inserted, because this whole indicator framework is about the ICPD program of action. And I don't think we need to reiterate that because it's right throughout. So my request would be we are going to insert the appropriate footnotes that this is in alignment with the SDGs. And I think the amendments that have been made fully meet the submissions that have been made by Iran yesterday in terms of making this clearly a voluntary framework and making a change very clearly to reflect reproductive rights. And this is very clear that this will be in line with the ICPD program of actions. So we will insert the footnote and we will. So if it is okay with Iran, then we will insert it that it's in line with the SDGs, noting that this whole indicator framework is about the ICPD program of action. Would they be flexible with that so that it keeps the decision relatively simple and clean, Madam?
Thank you, Secretariat, for that clarification. I recognize the delegation of Iran. Please go ahead.
And the Secretariat. Actually, as the Secretariat mentioned that this thematic area is based on the SDG, and the whole of the term is based on the SDG. I don't know, understand what is the actually what is the difficult for the secretariat to accept the term of SDG in this context, because very it's important that reproductive rights in accordance with ICT program of action and the Beijing platform, and we can't flexible about this issue, and we asked the secretariat to add this term if it can't add it in the whole the text, can add to footnote.
So the distinguished delegation of Iran is saying that the footnote should reflect that it's in line with SDG and also the Beijing platform and ICPD. Is that? Right. Distinguished delegation of Iran and other colleagues who are following.
Thank you very much. We actually agreed with this format. Thank you.
Right. So I take it that the distinguished delegation of Iran is in agreement with what is being reflected here on the screen. Do I see any further concerns, comments, suggestions at this point? If it is not the case, may I take that decision 2 is agreed? Thank you very much. We will now take the second segment, that is organization. Point A, opening, duration and organization of the session. Any comments on this particular paragraph? It appears delegations are in agreement with this section. And then moving on to section B on attendance, paragraph 3. It contains the list of member states who participated in the committee session. So we agree on paragraph 3, and then we move to paragraph 4. Once again on attendance from the United Nations system and specialized agencies. I take that paragraph 4 is agreed. Paragraph 5, representatives from non-governmental organizations, civil societies. The list of representatives are given. Paragraph 5 is then agreed. Please move on to section C on election of officers. Paragraph 6. Paragraph 6 I take as agreed. Then section D on agenda, please read from Roman 1 up to Roman 5 as a whole. I take that section D on agenda is agreed. Section E, other events, paragraph 8, what you see on the screen. I take that paragraph 8 is agreed. Then please turn on to the list of documents in the annex. Are there any comments, suggestions? It appears not the case, so the annex to the report is also agreed. Distinguished delegates, as we have reviewed all paragraphs of the report, I propose that the draft report with those proposals that has been discussed on, I recognize the distinguished delegation of Japan. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to, if the Secretary could explain to us that where the reference will be made to the Chair's summary. I mean, for example, other committees' report has one paragraph. The deliberation, for example, the Committee on Statistics in para 33, section 4, says that deliberation during the formal session will be summarized in the chair's summary, which will be available within the week following the conclusion of the session and included as Annex 3 to the present report. So, so far, we don't see any reference to the chair's summary. Maybe did I misunderstood or omit some sentence here?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Tata, please go ahead.
I think it's the chair did. I think it's a point raised, a valid point raised by the distinguished delegate of Japan. The format that we received from editorial is very clearly that we had explained that the detailed report of proceedings, a slightly more detailed report of the proceedings would be prepared in the coming days and circulated for agreement, and then be annexed to this as a chair's summary. I think if this was the format that was provided to us by editorial, if the delegates feel that it would be useful to add a paragraph reflecting that that would be done, then perhaps we could take that up also. I would, if you'd like to give me half a minute to just consult with the procedures in other committees, I will be able.
Delegation of Japan.
I think in the meantime, if the secretary could maybe if the secretary could exactly when we can receive the draft chair summary. And I think in the context of the Committee on Statistics, this is written, and what is written in the report is that will be made available within a week following the conclusion of the session. So that clearly says that the chair summary will be made available to us within a week. And I just want to get similar sense of time frame for the for receiving the draft chair summary. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this valuable comment coming from the distinguished delegation of Japan. I would invite the Secretariat to explain on procedurally how the suggestion on the chair's summary, including the duration that it might take to circulate the chair's summary to the delegates, as well as how it will be reflected on our report. You have the floor.
Yes. We're adding a small text. I mean, in consultation with the editorial, so we apologize. We're putting in 3 lines, very clearly a paragraph there which shows that the chair's summary would be made available. We would take a week at maximum to prepare it and circulate it for member states to check for any factual accuracies or inaccuracies or comments that you may have. But noting that it will be a very brief summary, first we'll get it cleared through the chair and circulate it through the member states. So 7 days would be the time that we'd be taking.
Japan, would you like to take the floor again? You have, no. Right, I recognize that the distinguished delegation of Japan wanting to join virtually, you have the floor.
I just want to point out that during the midterm review, which for the of the APPC made with the same document of report SCAP/APPC/2018/5. First, on the page 2, the chair's summary is mentioned in the decision page, and also, so that corresponds to the Secretariat's what Secretary has said, that he's going to add some sentences mentioning chair's summary. In addition to it, there is in the annex, in the list of documents, the chair's summary is mentioned as working papers. So I wish that the Secretariat can add these sentences as before. Thank you.
Thank the distinguished delegation of Japan. May I now invite the distinguished delegation from Russian Federation to take the floor? You have the floor, sir.
Благодарю вас, госпожа председатель. Ну, у нас, собственно говоря, не было желания заниматься такими техническими деталями, о которых сейчас идет речь. Однако, коль скоро о них сейчас мы говорим, я вынужден отметить одну вещь принципиального характера, а вторую вещь организационного характера. Во-первых, в том, что касается формулировки, предложенной делегацией Японии, и касающейся резюме председателя по итогам сессии. Мог бы я попросить секретариат вывести на экран эту формулировку? Я хотел бы попросить секретариат вывести предлагаемую делегацией Японии формулировку на экран. I'm kindly requesting the technical staff of this. Okay, good. Thank you. У нас есть одна проблема с этой формулировкой. Если это будет приемлемо для других делегаций, и в частности это будет приемлемо для делегаций, которые предлагают эту формулировку, мы можем согласиться с данной формулировкой при условии, что из нее будет вычеркнуто в первой строчке слово formal. Exactly. Это первое. И второе, чисто по организационной стороне дела, нам кажется более уместным помещать эту формулировку в раздел Римское 2 под пункт A. Спасибо.
I thank the distinguished delegation of Russian Federation. The distinguished delegation of China, you have the floor.
谢谢主席女士。中国代表团也想问关于这个正式混合会议的这一个词是否在原来的或者在近期这个联合国的会议中使用过？因为我们也觉得这个词很陌生，还想请秘书处澄清这一问题。谢谢。
I thank the distinguished delegation of China. I will now give the floor to the distinguished delegation of Iran to be followed by the distinguished delegation of Japan. Iran, you have the floor.
Wanna add about the amendment we suggest, please omit declaration and for the action, just Beijing platform, Beijing declaration and platform for action, no. Just Beijing platform, omit declaration and for the action at the end of the sentence. Just Beijing platform. Yes, omit the just Beijing platform. Omit the, yes, thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished delegation of Iran. May I now invite the distinguished delegation of Japan to be followed by the Secretariat for some clarification.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to see the deletion of the formal because that is taken from the report from the Committee on Statistics at its previous session. For the Committee on Statistics, they had advanced informal consultation before the formal consultation in this format. So that's why they had a separate section on the advanced informal consultation. That summary was reflected as part of the report as Roman 2, Roman 3 of the report. So I'm happy to see the deletion of the formal from the cut and paste from the Committee on Statistics. And as for the placement, I'm happy to put it anywhere except for the action part. I mean, the matter brought to the attention of the committee is not the place to put the summary because this is not the intergovernmentally discussed and the negotiated part of the document. So that should be placed somewhere else, either in the way the Russian Federation suggested, or as a separate section and Roman 3 in this case. Either one will be fine. I think that's a matter of the editorial nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the distinguished delegation of Japan. I wish to invite the Secretariat for clarification at this point.
Madam, I would like to, in reference to the intervention made the distinguished delegate of Iran, I think we are compelled to use the full description, the Beijing Declaration and platform for action. I think to use a small piece of the entire wording will be problematic for us. So, if we have to use in the footnote, we will. If you leave it to us in the footnote, we will use the full alignment with the documents using the full description of the declarations and the platform. So, if they could leave the editing and the flexibility part to us, how we reflect it, if we can be trusted to do that, we would like to reflect the full name of the declaration and the platform for action. Thank you.
Iran, the distinguished delegation of Iran, would that clarification helpful?
If they bring the actually item 5.6 in the document A/RES/71/313 about the SCG, if they bring whole paragraph 5.6, we are okay. But if not, no, we ask the change just Beijing platform for action, not declaration.
Distinguished delegation of Iran, I think there was fair amount of consultation even last evening, and then it appears that there is suggestions to reflect language which is being taken as parts. So the suggestion from Secretariat is to reflect as it is in the internationally agreed format in a footnote. So I seek your indulgence and flexibility at this point.
Actually, we thank you your suggestion, and we accept your suggestion. As you mentioned, we wanted to bring the international agreed language, and we try to be following of that. If they bring the international language that we mentioned, that find the paragraph 5.6, the resolution of the 70/313, we are do agree and flexible on it. Thank you very much.
The delegation of China, you have the floor.
谢谢主席女士，我想请那个秘书处再澄清一下，根据这个联合国通用这个文件标准，在提到北京宣言和行动计划的时候，是一般是用北京Beijing Platform 这是一个标准表述吗？还是就是然后在这个标注中再标注全名？我刚才理解秘书处的意思是这样，请问这是在其他哪个文件中是否能给我们一个参考？谢谢。
Thank you, the distinguished delegation of China. Are there any other delegations wanting to take the floor at this point? Yeah, the Secretariat, please go ahead with the clarification, what the Chinese delegation was requesting.
Distinguished Delegate China, in all official documentation, we use the full description, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. So that is normally, the both go together. So this is based on the advice, based on our previous, if it's an official documentation, we would use the full, we would prefer, and I think our editorial norms that we use the full description, the declaration as well as the platform for action, because when you look at the platform for action, it has to be related to the declaration. That's the only thing. But so we are in your hands in terms of what could be.
Is it okay? Oh, yeah, the delegation of China.
如果是这样，我们中方还是希望能用那个全名。因为刚才那个主席女士也提到了昨天和伊朗代表团的一个consultation， 我们也想了解一下，就是这个讨论的情况，或者说现在不让提及全名的一个主要的这个原因是是什么？谢谢。
Yeah. Can I just suspend for 5 minutes and we talk to, because it's very difficult to follow what she was saying. Yeah? So we'll call them and we'll call them. Distinguished delegation from Iran and rest of the delegation, I thank for all the comments coming up. I believe at this point in the process, the late hours of the adoption, that in any sense we stick to the agreed language of how we refer the meeting documents and the meeting outcomes. So I seek the cooperation and flexibility. I believe, as I said at the beginning, with your distinguished delegation, we had certain understanding last evening. So if there is flexibility at this point where we can resort to the agreed nomenclature of the Beijing platform and program of action, it would help us to move forward. Please take the floor.
Actually do flexible with this format that you mentioned, Beijing Platform for Action and Program of Action ICPT. We actually do flexible and mention that use that international agreed language in this regional text.
She just wants Beijing platform for action.
I recognize the distinguished delegation of China, followed by the distinguished delegation of the Russian Federation.
想请俄罗斯代表先发言，谢谢。
The distinguished delegation of Russia first, and then to be followed by the distinguished delegation of China.
Спасибо уважаемому делегату Китая. У нас, конечно, не было намерения перехватывать пальму первенства. Но, коль скоро мы хотим побыстрее закончить, насколько я понимаю, наиболее приемлемым способом нашу сессию, то, конечно, я не могу не согласиться с тем, что было сказано председателем нашей сессии. И в этой связи хотел бы подчеркнуть, что, конечно, надо использовать те формулировки, которые уже были одобрены на международных форумах. И ключевой для нас в этом смысле форум тот, который утвердил цели устойчивого развития. И если я правильно понял представителя делегации Ирана, они, собственно, и ссылались на этот пункт 5.6 из целей устойчивого развития. И там есть та формулировка, которая, собственно говоря, была утверждена, и которая, в частности, содержит конкретное название. Цитирую: «The Beijing Platform for Action». Вот, собственно, и все. Поэтому я предлагаю использовать именно эту формулировку. Похоже, мы заблудились, как на русском языке говорят, в 3 соснах. Хотя на самом деле все ясно. Спасибо.
For the distinguished delegation of Russian Federation for adding clarity to this matter, and may I now invite the distinguished delegation of China.
谢谢主席女士。中方认为呢，我们就是在提到这个重要会议和名称的时候，一定要和这个联合国以前的文件，尤其是联大正式通过的文件相一致。刚才感谢俄罗斯代表提到的，在2030可持续发展议程中用的是就是现在北京 Platform for Action 这个表述，那中方对此没有意见。你可以请那个秘书处可以把中方的反对的名字去掉。
So you have typed it, right?
Yes. You have uploaded it. It doesn't come up.
I can't see this. I will invite the Secretariat to make a brief statement.
I think using the language from 5.6, we reflect that in accordance with the Program of Action of the International Conference of Population and Development and the Beijing Platform for Action. And I think this is in line with what was suggested by both the distinguished delegate of Russia and China, and should be acceptable to the distinguished delegate of Iran. Yeah.
Delegation of China.
我觉得是这样，感谢主席女士。我觉得秘书处没有把我刚才的发言反映出来。我说如果北京 Platform for action 这个在2030里出现过的话，中方可以接受，中方并不反对。你可以把我的把中国反对的这个去掉。
Yes.
Iran, you have the floor. And thereafter, the distinguished delegation of Russian Federation.
Giving me the floor, and thank you my colleagues from Russian Federation and China delegation, and we do fully agree with this format. Thank you.
The distinguished delegation of the Russian Federation. You have the floor, sir.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель. Единственная причина, по которой мы подняли флаг, это сказать, что с предлагаемой формулировкой мы согласны и можем, как говорится, убрать оттуда упоминание России. Спасибо.
Thank you very much for all the distinguished delegations for their flexibility. So we consider that we all agree for this formulation, and the Secretariat will make the relevant language reflected in the finally produced report. So it's agreed. What's this one?
You can ask if now that you have reviewed can be finally adopted.
Distinguished delegates, as we have reviewed all the paragraphs of this report, I propose that the report be adopted as a whole with those editorial and other suggestions that were just agreed upon, and the Secretariat will take care of any additional editorial edits. So may I ask whether we all are in agreement that the report ESCAP/CSD/2020/L.2 can be adopted as a whole? I take that the report of the 6th CSD is adopted. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I now wish to invite the United Nations Under Secretary General and Executive Secretary of ESCAP's statement to be presented, and I was told that for some urgent reasons she couldn't be present here physically, but on her behalf I invite Mr. Tata, the Secretary of the Committee, to deliver her remarks. Mr. Tata, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the opening of this meeting, we highlighted the development gains from investing in social protection. We noted the price tag to achieve these gains is affordable for most countries, ranging from 2 to 6% of the GDP. We were also reminded of overlapping global trends which are faced by our region, ranging from rapidly aging population, international migration, urbanization, and technological innovation. Without well-designed and comprehensive social protection systems and population monitoring frameworks, these trends risk disrupting and destabilizing progress to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in our region. Over the past 2 days, you, as part of this committee, have deliberated on ways to steer this course of change toward the future we want. A future where the state protects all its people and invests in their well-being, where population dynamics, sexual and reproductive health, and gender equality are integrated into all development strategies, where illness, unemployment, Pregnancy, old age, disability, or an injury do not push people into vulnerability. Achieving the SDGs requires strong political will and tools to design and implement effective and comprehensive policy responses. Through the endorsement of the action plan to strengthen regional cooperation on social protection, this committee has shown its resolve. It also evidences political commitment to promote population and development by endorsing the Asia-Pacific Voluntary Indicator Framework for monitoring progress towards the implementation of the Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development, and the commitments contained in the Asian and Pacific Ministerial Declaration on Population and Development. We hope that both the action plan and the indicator framework will serve as helpful regional tools to support you in building back better in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. We also deeply appreciate the committee's guidance to the Secretariat on how to take these tools forward as we embark on the UN Decade of Action to achieve the 2030 Agenda. By learning from each other, monitoring progress, and exchanging experiences, we can together reach new standards for our region. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretariat stands ready to support you in operationalizing the action plan and indicator monitoring framework in close collaboration with our United Nations partners. In closing, I would like to thank all of you for your active and constructive participation in the 6th session of the Committee on Social Development. My special gratitude to the Chair, Mrs. Samantha Jayasuriya, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary and Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka to ESCAP, as well as to the Vice Chair, Ms. Suzila Binti Mohammed Sidek, Minister and Permanent Representative of Malaysia to ESCAP. Madam Chair, I thank you for your excellent steering of discussions, for your patience, for your sagacity and wisdom, and for bringing us to a successful conclusion. I also want to thank our UN partners, particularly ILO and UNFPA, for once again demonstrating that the UN family is stronger together. And finally, let me express my sincere appreciation to the staff, my fellow staff of the Social Development Division, and colleagues in conference management, interpreters, as well as colleagues in the Office of the Executive Secretary of the Commission, for the hard work and the excellent organization of this hybrid meeting. I thank you all, above all the participants here, for your outstanding cooperation, your flexibility, and your your guidance to us. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tata, and we also take this opportunity to thank Madam Executive Secretary for her support for this committee's work. Distinguished delegates, the floor is now open for any distinguished delegations wishing to address this committee. I recognize the distinguished delegation of Iran.
Need to read the explanation position of Iran for the report of the 6th session of the Committee on Social Development. We congratulate the Commission for endorsing the report of 6th session of the Committee on Social Development. In our understanding, there should be only a single voluntary reporting system by the national governments based on the principle of national ownership and leadership. We reiterate any reviewing, monitoring, and reporting of indicator frameworks are inherent responsibilities of governments. Under this framework, the Asian Pacific Regional Commission is encouraged continuing supporting member states upon request. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished delegation of Iran. Do I see any further delegations wishing to speak at this point? As there are no further delegates wishing to address the committee, then I will proceed to closure. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Through our collective efforts, we have agreed to strengthen regional cooperation on social protection by adopting an action plan to guide us in this endeavor. We have also adopted the indicator framework to monitor progress towards the implementation of the program of action of the International Conference on Population and Development and of commitments contained in the Asian and Pacific Ministerial Declaration on Population and Development. Our consensus today express our recognition of the critical role social protection plays in achieving the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development as accentuated by the COVID-19 pandemic. It also highlights our resolve to redouble our efforts to meet the commitments we have made on population and development as part of our efforts to achieve sustainable development in the region. It is heartening to see regional solidarity at a time when the region and world face an unprecedented crisis. It is my hope that the action plan and monitoring framework endorsed today can lay a solid foundation to accelerate implementation of the 2030 Agenda in Asia and the Pacific. On behalf of the Vice Chair and myself, permit me to reiterate our sincere appreciation for the honor bestowed upon us to serve this committee session. My thanks also go to all the Secretariat team members who greatly facilitated our work. Let me also thank the conference officers, the interpreters, editors who worked hard behind the scenes to support us. I thank you all. Before we adjourn the session, for participants in ESCAP Hall, in order to leave the room with proper physical distancing, I would like to request the participants who sit at the last row to stand up and exit the room first, followed by the next rows one after another. Exit is on the right, and please kindly follow guidance from conference management staff. Please ensure that you have your valuables and personal belongings with you. With this, I declare the 6th session of the Committee on Social Development adjourned.